Welcome, sleepyhead. If you're settling in now, pillows fluffed and lights dimmed, this is your gentle corner of the internet, history for sleepyheads. Tonight, we'll take a slow stroll through the hidden lives of historical villains. Not to excuse, not to sensationalize, but to notice the ordinary details that lived beside extraordinary harm. A dog's collar tapping a chair leg. A teacup going lukewarm on a polished desk. The soft whisper of a quill on parchment. I'll open a few quiet loops and tuck them closed later. There's a ridiculous decree that once jingled in pockets like a secret. A four-legged dinner guest seated a little too near the silver. And wait, really? Public health policy from a regime responsible for staggering harm. We'll tread kindly, without graphic detail, without harsh turns. If sleep arrives before the ending, that's all right. We'll keep turning pages softly. Picture the hush of old capitals after dark. A guard's lamp sways on a hook. A study smells faintly of ink and smoke. Somewhere, a clerk stifles a yawn and sands a signature dry. Tonight's cast includes Adolf Hitler, Caligula, Ivan IV of Russia, Mary I of England, King Leopold II of Belgium, and Nero. And to round out our tapestry, we'll add Cesare Borgia, collector of mapmakers and engineers, and Maximilien Robespierre, a public terror to his opponents and yet personally austere, quiet, and tidy. Why does the private life of a villain matter in a bedtime story? Because it reminds us that people, not fairy tale monsters, make history. Even empires have bedtimes. Carpets need sweeping. Somewhere a dog is curled under the desk while decisions are made. These small images help us keep our lantern steady. We'll move gently and speak in warm tones. When the past turns heavy, we will say so softly and move along. Before we wander, take an easy breath. Let your shoulders settle. Feel the room grow kind. We begin carefully with Adolf Hitler. A name that tightens the air. We won't dwell in the dark. We'll notice the unsettling ordinaries. He loved dogs, especially German shepherds, and would walk them in the quiet of alpine estates. Imagine fir trees in a cold breeze. A collar giving a faint tap against a knee. In later years his table leaned vegetarian, simple plates, muted cutlery, a window turning back a draft. And the public health oddity we'll return to later. His regime promoted anti-smoking research and restrictions in certain places. A jarring dissonance, like a neatly folded napkin beside a shattered window. We mention it to understand contrast, not to balance a ledger that cannot be balanced. In Rome, we meet Caligula, Gaius by birth, Little Boots, by nickname. The tail that trots down the corridor of memory is his horse, Incitatus. Was the horse truly given high office? Historians doubt a formal appointment. But the pampering, marble stall, fine feed, attendance, may well be true. Imagine a polished table. The small halo of an oil lamp. And near the head of that table, a contented horse, ears flicking like tiny metronomes. Perhaps it was mockery. Perhaps it was satire. Perhaps it was a way of measuring how far power could stretch by asking everyone else to nod. In Russia, Ivan IV, called the Terrible, steps through winter air. Snow stacks softly on ledges. Fur-lined cloaks move through stone halls. His Oprichniki, a private apparatus of fear, rode dark horses and favored symbols like a broom or a dog's head. Sweeping away. Sniffing out. It was theater wrapped around policy. In this quiet room, we don't open the next door. We simply notice the props. A broom leaning against the wall, a saddle cold with iron, a corridor that remembers every boot heel. Across the channel, Mary I, Mary Tudor, moves like a determined candle flame. She writes in a neat hand while sealing wax pools like a small red moon. She loved music. Chapel services were carefully composed. Devotion braided itself with policy. The nickname history gave her is harsh. Our tone is soft and precise. Imagine tapestries warming stone. A signet ring turning lightly. A sentence forming carefully before the seal comes down. In Brussels, King Leopold II presides in salons where mirrors make constellations out of candlelight. Teaspoons chime, conversations feel crisp and civilized. Far away, in the Congo Free State he privately controlled, suffering spread. We won't rehearse pain here. We'll hold the dissonance. Polished crystal here, distant forests there. Here, bright rooms full of reflection. There, stories the mirrors never see. A velvet glove laid neatly on a very cold table. And Nero, wrapped in myth. The line that he fiddled while Rome burned is a bedtime rhyme that doesn't quite fit the facts. The fiddle, as we imagine it, didn't exist. Some sources suggest he organized relief, even opened his gardens to the displaced. He loved performance, yes. And sometimes theater gives rumor wings. The gentle moral tucks under your pillow. Be wary when a story rhymes too neatly with what you already suspect. Two more figures join our quiet walk. Cesare Borgia, whose name flickers like a candle guttering and flaring, notorious in reputation but also a planner with a taste for maps and machines. Leonardo da Vinci traveled for a time in his service. Imagine roll-out maps with gluey edges, bridges sketched in brown ink, a compass clicking softly on wood. A cloak lies over a chair. A bowl of olives waits. Behind the cloak and dagger silhouette is a desk lined with measuring tools. And Maximilien Robespierre, the incorruptible. Publicly severe, privately tidy. Modest clothes, straightened papers, a careful budget. He had a fondness for pet birds. Picture a canary hopping on a windowsill while speeches wait in patient stacks. Indoors, order hums. Outdoors, the storm won't alphabetize itself. Turning points arrive like letters. Sometimes they are stamped and official. Sometimes they are scribbled in haste. We read them slowly. Hitler's rise found lift under economic collapse, grievance, and institutions too strained, or too willing, to resist. Picture a kitchen at dusk and a radio glowing faintly. Promises arrive set to the rhythm of ordinary worries. Plates dry on a rack. Someone nods. A nation can drift toward nightmare while believing morning will be ordinary. Caligula's palace turned quirks into weather. If an emperor hints that a horse might outshine senators, courtiers learn a smile that doesn't show teeth. Marble, it turns out, can learn to agree with you. That kind of room is dangerous. Ivan IV carried early fractures into a court of factions. The oprichnina became both instrument and emblem. A broom sweeps and signals sweeping. Imagine a slow bell tolling in a snowy square. It doesn't startle you. It simply measures how fear keeps time. Mary I inherited a country cinched tight by religious change. Her compass was faith, her crown, a constant weight. In private, ritual and music offered order. In public, order became mandate. Picture a chapel's last note folding back into silence, and a queen writing a decision in a hand that does not shake. Leopold II cultivated image. Philanthropy brushed like varnish over a personal colonial venture. In ledger books, columns look crisp and the paper feels smooth to fingers far from the forests. In our quiet room, we run a fingertip down a column and feel only the tooth of the paper, not the lives beneath the ink. Nero's knot was tied with rumor and expectation. A singing prince is easy to caricature. Caricatures travel well. The fire, the singing, the gardens, threads history keeps trying to tie into a bow. We acknowledge the knot. We set it down gently. Cesare Borgia's eyes cracked loudly underfoot. Alliances. Betrayals. Improvisations. Behind the cloak stories, A desk waits with engineers' notebooks and measuring tools. He liked problems with hinges. Bridges that can fold like fans. Maps pressed flat with brass tacks. Robespierre lashed ideals to urgency. He wanted reason's tidy house. The Times kicked the furniture. His fastidiousness comforted and masked. In this quiet scene, he pauses to sprinkle seed. The bird tilts its head. For a heartbeat, the speeches are only paper. We are inching closer to our open loops. The strange decree that jingles in a pocket. The horse at dinner. The public health oddity. We're almost there. Let's open our parcels. First, Wait, really? Public health note. The Nazi regime supported anti-smoking research and placed restrictions on tobacco in some public settings. It's true. The dissonance is sharp, like a crisp white collar on a cruel uniform. We include it not to weigh a scale that can't be balanced, but to show how small, even sensible-seeming policies can live inside terrible systems. The napkin is neatly folded. The table is still wrong. Now, the strange decree we promised. A small detour to a different ruler, Peter the Great of Russia. He isn't on our villain list tonight, but his decree jingles perfectly for our theme. He levied a tax on beards to nudge his nobles toward Western fashions. Those who paid received a token, a tiny beard license coin to show inspectors. Imagine patting your coat. Keys. Coin. Comb. Beard license. The coin's face shows a stylized beard. The message teases. It's absurd and real, a bureaucrat's lullaby for whiskers. And at last, the four-legged dinner guest, Caligula's incitatus. Consul? Almost certainly not. Pampered? Likely so. Visualize a dinner washed in lamp glow. Grapes on a silver plate. A bowl of oats polished to a mirror. Around the table, polite faces pretending this is normal. Power, tested not by shouting, but by asking everyone to nod at a horse. One more nuance before we drift onward. The myth about Nero's fiddle doesn't hold, and some sources suggest he helped with relief during the Great Fire, opening his gardens to the displaced. Not a halo. Not redemption. Just a reminder that reputations can harden into statues that no longer resemble the person. The rhyme of the story keeps it alive. The facts hum in a quieter key. What can we carry gently into the night? Power makes echo chambers. Personal habits, dogs, diets, tidy desks, pet birds, do not cleanse decisions. Elegant rooms can host ugly choices. And myths that rhyme a little too well deserve a second look in daylight. Bedtime history can hold both a lantern and a lullaby. Tie our threads like ribbons. The beard coin cool against the palm. The horse content, practicing a slow chew. A public health campaign in the worst possible company, an uneasy pebble in the shoe. Mary's candlelit letters, syllables like beads. Ivan's costumed fear, a broom against the wall. Leopold's mirrors multiplying light that belongs to the candles, not to the man. Cesari's maps rolled snug and tied with string. Robespierre's papers squared at the corners, a bird breathing like a tiny bellows. If you're learning history while you sleep, let these images drift like lanterns on water. If you're still awake but peaceful, float with us a little longer. If you're drowsy, you won't miss anything loud. No sharp turns ahead. Think of the ordinary objects that survive the extraordinary. Keys on a dish by the door. A comb with a missing tooth. A signet ring warm from a hand. A chair that remembers being pushed back from a desk. History moves not only with drums and trumpets, but with the rustle of parchment and the sound of someone clearing their throat before saying, "So." Let's retell it all, slower, simpler, as if smoothing the last wrinkle from a blanket. There were rooms where the floorboards remembered every footstep. A dog slept under a desk, paws twitching at a dream. Somewhere a broom leaned in a corridor, once a symbol, now just a broom. In a pocket, a coin pretended to license whiskers. At dinner, a very calm horse pretended to be a senator. Quills scratched. Teacups cooled. Decisions, large as mountains, took shape in gestures small as a raised eyebrow. A queen's hand hovered over sealing wax. The wax trembled, a small red planet, and then still beneath the signet ring. A Tsar's riders turned night into theater, and every dawn the costumes had to be hung back on pegs. A king's mirrors multiplied candlelight into constellations, but none of those stars showed sailors the way home. A singer-emperor opened a gate, displaced families slipped in like shadows. Rumor sang anyway. A duke unrolled a map while a genius sketched a bridge that folded like a fan. A lawyer straightened papers while a canary pecked at seed that sounded like rain on a windowsill. Hold the lesson that fits in a pocket. Ordinary things endure. Keys. Coin. Comb. A cup still warm enough to remember tea. Uniforms wait on pegs. Robes hang. Shoes line up by the door. Choices happen in quiet rooms where someone clears their throat and begins with a single word. Then the future moves forward, one ordinary gesture at a time. Now picture your own quiet room. The lamp is steady. The air is cool but kind. Outside, rooftops sit like folded blankets in the dark. Inside, your breath is even and calm. On your desk, real or imagined, there's a small coin you don't need to spend. It winks once in the lamplight and goes still. You set it beside a featherlight pen. Perhaps you whisper goodnight to no one in particular, and the room whispers it back. When morning finds you, if you like, you can remember 3 gentle things. A beard token, cool and silly and real. A horse at dinner, ears pricked toward history. And the thought that small routines do not redeem great wrongs, but they do help us see that the world is made and unmade by people who are, at the end of the day, ordinary in their rooms, with cups, and coins, and keys. Sleep well, sleepyhead. We'll be here next time with more peaceful history to ease you into the night, more quiet stories to help you relax, more soft curiosities to set by your bedside. For now, breathe, rest, and let the past tidy itself away like books shelving themselves along the quiet wall.